Hello and welcome back to a brand new Player 2 review discussion. My name is Paul James, and today, for his second appearance in the week, Jason Hawkins, how are you?
I'm loving it. I'm living large.
Enjoying this format?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't done any video stuff before this, so I was a little bit reluctant because I just try and keep an incredibly low profile. Ironically, for a person that writes on the internet.
Right, so nice, yeah.
But you know what? I'm actually really enjoying it. It makes life so much easier.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of complimentary sort of content, and I guess in this particular case, it complements your written review of Tunic, which people will be able to find on the Player 2 website right now. You've been fortunate enough to play it in this particular instance, and I guess it's a bit unusual for this format. I haven't. So this is a very, I guess, one-sided conversation in a sense. You're going to share some of your thoughts and experiences to complement that written review that you've got up on the website. So I guess let's start at the top level. What do you think?
Honestly, I love it. I went into Tunic not knowing that much about it. I looked at it and went, oh, you know, cutesy visuals, kind of cool art style, Zelda-ish kind of feel. And I thought, you know, we'll play this for like, 7-10 hours and then we'll be done with it and it'll be kind of a bit of fun. I came out of it thinking this is probably one of the best experiences. And there's a lot to that, not just the game, but this is one of the best experiences I've had in games forever. And if this doesn't come out as my game of the year, I will be baffled that something came out that's better.
Right. Okay, that says a lot considering the stellar lineup of games that we've had so far this year.
Yeah.
And it still is only March. That's a horrifying prospect. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge in November, December when we come to it. That's incredibly good to hear. I mean, my history, I guess, with the game goes right back to before it was even known as Tunic. We were discussing this recently that Andrew Shoulders, who's like the lead on the game, him and I were chatting about this when it was referred to as Secret Legend. Well before Xbox picked it up, it was just this little indie that I don't know, probably just popped up in my feed at some point, and I kind of fell in love with it then. And we chatted, and I fully intend to have him back on Dev Diary to kind of go full circle with this at some stage. But yeah, I mean, this game, those Zelda-ish qualities that it has, and it obviously puts those at the forefront, certainly visually and stylistically, and even in the combat sense. But when I've tried out the various demos that have popped up over the years, and certainly got that Zelda feel from it. They're a little bit more brutal. I'm definitely not going to go and drop the souls or any of that sort of thing. But you could clarify for me that it in fact has some of those qualities. I don't know.
So yes, combat is really tough, and it also is based a hell of a lot on stamina. And as I mentioned in my review, I consider this a Souls game, but not because of the way they discuss it. So when people think about Souls, they think about really challenging combat, slow, methodical, really taking your time with things. That's not what I'm thinking about. When I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking of all the things that were kind of synonymous with Dark Souls 1. So environmental storytelling, a hub world that you expand upon, and then like you're always looping back to that hub and going back through from there. And also that really tough system, and not to mention the like little tiny secrets that are like hidden around the world, and the way that the story is told as well, because there's no understandable dialogue in it.
Okay, cool. I want to pick your brain as much as you're possibly able to talk about it. I'm keen to pick your brain about that dialogue, because I mean that was something that's been at the forefront for quite some time. The text there, like they put text screens up, like there's text bubbles, and it's indecipherable language on the screen. Without spoiling, I guess, too much, like, does that become decipherable?
So one thing I will say about it, and is part of that experience that I leaned into, they set up a Discord for games journalists, game reviewers to go in and chat about the game. They kind of let us loose with the wolves. They weren't policing it at all, so they just like, we're not going to help you with anything or anything like that. We're just here to enable a forum for which you guys can talk to each other about it. And there are clues throughout the entire game, because you get like a little instruction manual, which I will touch on later because it's a really cool aesthetic, which is all in that Tunic language, or runic Tunic, as I call it. And
nice.
Quite near the end of it, you get some hints about how that language is deciphered. There was, with the assistance of myself, not tooting my own horn, God forbid, but a couple of journalists came together and we managed to solve it. And it's such a cool experience to then go through and look at all of that dialogue, even the NPC dialogue, and go, sit down with a piece of paper. Like I have let me just show it briefly, like
your chicken scroll from as you
like a bunch of my notes there. I have pages and pages of notes and the deciphering of all the dialogue, and it takes time, but it can be done. And I think it's really, really fascinating to do. And it's not necessary for the lion's share of the game, but there are a few things in the game where maybe that dialogue will be helpful. The game does give you like hints on its own. Again, I mentioned kind of the environmental storytelling. So you'll go into an area and you're like, okay, I kind of get what the gist is here. But in case you don't, there will be like little snippets of text in English for you to kind of get a hint of what you're meant to do or where you're meant to go. And if it doesn't do that, it will give you pictograph information instead.
Okay, cool.
Which is awesome. Really, really cool.
Is it because, like, without that, is it really abstract, I guess, at that point? Like, if they would have removed those little handholds, you'd be just stumbling blind?
You would absolutely be stumbling blind.
Yeah, okay.
Even with the handholds, I'm not too bold to admit that there was a couple of times I did have to ask for help. I was wandering around an area, even with the pictograph information, I was wandering around an area for 3 hours trying to find out where I was meant to go next. And take into consideration, it only took me 12 hours to finish the game, or about there, to finish the main story, so to speak. There is stuff to do after that, but so 3 hours to do one part is a lot. And
when the reviewers, so obviously you reached out into the Discord there for that little bit of help, how close were you, just out of interest, how close had you been to exactly what you were looking for throughout those 3 hours? Had you been close, or were you totally on the wrong track?
It was extremely close.
That's even more painful.
It is, yeah. I had been to that almost exact spot probably about 10 times and just overlooked it, which was frustrating, but all of the information was there. I just hadn't
assembled it in your
put
mind.
it all together. Yeah.
That's interesting. What about the combat? Because obviously, that is still a big pillar of the thing. It does lean on Zelda, and as you've mentioned, it's difficult. I personally am going to refrain from using that Souls language as much as possible because it does get thrown around left, right, and center. When people talk about difficulty, they instantly say Souls, and that's not always 100% accurate. So you can kind of clarify in that sense. But yeah, what's it been like? Because I've enjoyed what I've played, but it has kicked my ass a few times in the demo.
It will kick your ass. Mostly the bosses will really kill you, but there was a couple of instances where I was running around and I just got into an area of overworld mobs that kind of were a blocking point, and it just took me ages to get past them. But once you work out kind of, hey, how do I upgrade my how do I upgrade my stats? How do I use my items a bit better? You're like, okay, this is all starting to come together.
Yeah, fine.
But the bosses will still absolutely eat your lunch.
Okay. I mean, I look forward to that. I mean, this is certainly, I guess, as of when we have this conversation, we are fresh off the back of having a similar conversation last night about Final Fantasy Origin, and so the conversation about Strange of Paradise, for people that might be aware of that. We had a fairly lengthy conversation about difficulties and those sort of things, and again, the Souls language was kind of bandied around. This sort of format, I guess the kind of isometric 2D, again, Zelda inspired from that era, the Link to the Pasts and those sort of games, like that is right up my alley in terms of combat and wheelhouse, that sort of, like I'm very proficient in that space. So I don't know about you and how that kind of equates for you, but a difficulty with that sort of perspective and that sort of gameplay approach speaks to me far more than extreme difficulty in a what we tend to think of the Soulsborne sort of format. So
no, I absolutely
I'm
agree.
excited by that.
And the other benefit to it is that if you are having trouble, you can generally explore the world, find some more heart containers, or I can't remember exactly what they're called. I think they're heart jars. Yeah. find some items to upgrade your stats, or even pick up some extra items that might give you a boost to work your way through. And if you are having a huge amount of trouble, because it's kind of there's a couple of games that have come out that look really cutesy graphics and are just insanely difficult, like Cuphead and games like that.
Yeah.
And people just kind of want to play the story. So what the dev has done is actually put in the accessibility menu, and a few people did this because they just want to play through it. There is a no fail mode, which means you don't take any damage. And there's,
generous.
in case you wanted it, there is a no stamina. So you can, you just want to go through the thing of like dodging around a lot, but not having to worry about your stamina, or just getting to the process of like blocking all those hits and not it eating all your stamina as well. So there's like options there for people that, might find it very difficult. And I was tempted quite a few times.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So those options are there, and you know what? I think that's awesome. There's always going to be that discussion around games of like, ooh, are they making this too easy? Should we have difficulty sliders, stuff like that? Let people just enjoy things how they want to play it. Like if people get pulled into this game because they want to play with the cute graphics, or they want to do the puzzles, or they want to, just enjoy the world, and they're not great at combat, kinda who cares? Like, let them do their thing. They're not hurting anyone. It's not a multiplayer game. Let them have fun.
Yeah, there's no need to gatekeep in a case like this. It's
Totally.
And I'm glad to hear those features are there. Certainly, like just talking about the stamina one in particular, instantly I go, oh, take that away. Great. Now I am thinking 100% in line with old school Zelda. Pre-Breath of the Wild Zelda, where stamina ruined it, just for what it's worth.
Yeah.
What I dubbed shitty Witcher, but anyway. So, are there any other kind of important systems on the gameplay side that we need to kind of consider or discuss, or is it a little bit? I guess if people know of those old school Zeldas, do you have a fairly good understanding of what you're in for here?
Yeah, if you know, you know. So, a lot of, not dungeons per se, but areas that have a boss. It's not like Zelda where you've got to like find the boss key, or you've got to find chest keys and stuff like that. That doesn't exist. So it's just, you make your way through an area, you pray at the equivalent of bonfires. Again, I'm just used to Dark Souls terminology, so I kind of dance around it a bit. You pray at those shrines that heal you up, but also reset all the enemies in an area. So you're just making your way from shrine to shrine, going through until you finally get to the boss, and then you can beat them down from there. So
do you find? I'm guessing the answer is probably no, based on even just how you described the chest keys and all those, and big boss keys and all that sort of thing. Like, is there a unique item that you acquire? Like you found the hook shot in this dungeon, sort of equivalent to a Zelda thing. Like, do you get extra tools?
Sort of. Yeah, you definitely get extra tools. Quite a few of them. I think it's like 4 or 5 total that unlock new areas. And in a similar way to Zelda or Metroid or anything like that, you go back through some of the old areas and you're like, okay, now I know how to do this. Now I know how to activate this thing or go here. The very, very sneaky thing about the game, and I absolutely adore this, is that a lot of the things that you can do in the game, you can do at the beginning. You just don't know how.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, really, really cool.
That's fascinating, and something I guess that's something in the back of my mind, scratching at the back of my mind when I start playing the game myself, is okay. Yeah. So this thing that I don't think I can get through now, I reckon I might actually be able to do that, and I'll be beating my head against the wall for 3 hours until I finally hit you up and you say, no, you serious? Like, that's one of those things you couldn't do it.
Don't do it.
We've seen it from the demo. I think most people have got their mind made up about this thing, and again, you've used that word cutesy already. How good does this thing look?
Oh god, it's gorgeous. It looks great. The soundtrack is absolutely amazing as well.
That matches it. Awesome.
Yeah, really, really cool. I think it's like a 5-hour soundtrack as well, which is pretty damn good.
For a game that's maybe double that in length.
Yeah, I honestly think, the graphics, honestly, it absolutely nails it. It's consistent. It's a beautiful art style, and it changes with like all the area, but that consistent quality is really important, and it looks great. It's super cool.
And the environments kind of match. So, like, are we talking about? Is it a very similar like everything we've seen in demos and trailers and those sort of things up to this point has been that very lush green sort of environment. Are we seeing some kind of diverse terrain there, or
Yeah, you'll definitely branch out to quite a few different areas.
I hate to use the word biome because it's horribly overused these days, but
It is, but it's relatively apt.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Any other thoughts at all about the game that you wanted to share? That
I do want to talk about the instruction manual. So it's based on your old school game manuals, if you're old enough to have bought original NES games or anything similar, where you flick through full color. Really, really cool. Again, it's all based on the runic Tunic language. But what it does is it allows you to kind of explore the world, and it'll give you references. Like sometimes it'll have maps, or it'll give you little hints without giving you too much, or sometimes it'll just explain gameplay things that it doesn't teach you via literally anything else other than, hey, look at that manual, and oh, now I know how to do this certain thing. And the way it does like little hints and puzzles through there as well, you would never find most of the stuff in game if it weren't for these menus, which is really, really cool. Like, it took me ages to work out, for example, and this is not a spoiler, but it took me ages to work out how to use coins, for example.
Right.
Like, what the hell do I do with these coins? I'm just flicking it in the air every time I do it, and I'm like, then you finally pick up the manual, and you're like, oh, okay, that's exactly how it's used, and it's super simple, and it's not like written instructions, it's all pictograph, and it's all gorgeous art as well, like absolutely beautiful. And I think that's such a fascinating way to do it. Like, I kind of think of it in terms of like important gameplay decisions that get made. Like, I think back to like the Shadow of Mordor Nemesis system, and you're like, we're going to see a lot of this in games in the future. I have a feeling that this might hopefully lead the way for this kind of style of show don't tell instructions, which is really, really cool. Like, Dark Souls tries to do it, but instead it just ends up with like a bunch of like notices on the ground, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that, but this is just such an like interesting, cool way to do it. So yeah, don't sleep on the instruction manual. You wouldn't be able to anyway, but like, play around with it, have a look at it, and just immerse yourself in it, and I think you'll get a really good time out of it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And they straight up call it an instruction manual, like.
Yeah, I think it's called instruction booklet, but yeah, so it's got, and like, it's not all unlocked at the start. You'll go around the world and you'll find pages, and that'll unlock new parts of it. So like, over the course of it, you're unlocking I think there's 56 pages, but they're double-sided. So, yeah, it's great. It's super cool.
Cool. It's something I'll have to make sure I give a proper amount of time to. Any other thoughts at all about the game that you wanted to express?
No, I mean, just keep an eye out for the review, and honestly, as I kind of alluded to, this is kind of probably going to be one of my games of the year. If not, it'll be right up there. Don't sleep on it. Like, don't let this one skip you by. I haven't seen that many people talk about it prior to release.
Yeah, the marketing. I guess the marketing's been a little bit weird about it in the lead up.
It has, but I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be a big one that like will stick with people for a while. So yeah, dive in.
Cool. I'm very excited by that. Yeah, certainly for me, it was one of the most anticipated games of the year, and I'm thrilled that it's finally here, and I'm thrilled that you're so positive about the whole game. I mean, you're throwing Game of the Year sort of language around, which is really, really exciting. Again, March, disclaimers, everyone. But
yeah.
But that's an awesome sign, and yeah, I mean, this game speaks to me in so many different ways, so I'm really excited about the prospect of diving into this later this week. The game is coming to Steam and Xbox as of this point, and maybe that changes. There's an ID at Xbox Showcase this week. At this point, not on Game Pass. So wait and see for more information there. But as you mentioned, your review is up on the website, player2.net.au. So go check out Jason's written words as well. If you're watching and or listening to this, make sure to visit the website for that. But otherwise, that's it. Jason, where can people go to see what you're up to?
All of my stuff will be on player2.net.au, and also I am on Twitter at Pesmar, which is there.
100% got the fingers pointing in the right direction there perfectly as well. Right above your head like that. And yeah, make sure to check it out. Jason, by his own admission, doesn't use social media a hell of a lot, but if he keeps pumping out all these awesome reviews and we keep referencing it, maybe we'll be able to pull him over to the dark side sooner or later.
We have cookies.
Yeah, something like that. So, I don't know, maybe there's a Zelda-style Dark World in this thing. I purely made up that speculation myself. I'm not putting words in your mouth whatsoever, but little dark side reference for people. Make sure, catch myself, Paul James Games, on Twitter. Visit the website, player2.net.au. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're catching this on YouTube. On the podcast feeds, drop a 5-star review. Helps with exposure and encourages to do more of these. And that's about it. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Jason, thanks for joining me to discuss Tunic.
Always a pleasure.
And we'll see you later.